07 Star Citizens. Now, yesterday, a bunch of creators got the chance to try out the new RSI, Scorpius, and Terry's coming out in 3.18. Now, this is a very controversial ship, so I wanted to give you guys kind of my opinion on what my sort of first feels are for this ship, as well as what I think it might be best suited for in the future, and talk a bit about why the controversy is kind of unwarranted. So if you're unaware, coming out in 3.18 is the RSI Scorpius and Terry's, which is a variant on the RSI Scorpius Heavy Fighter. Now, the regular Scorpius is a 2-man heavy fighter. The pilot of the Scorpius gets 4 size 3 hard points, while the co-pilot also gets 4 size 3 hard points on a turret that moves around the ship. The other thing is that it's a very, very fast vehicle, so it's very well suited to shooting from behind and escaping. Now, in my opinion, the Scorpius is one of the best heavy fighters, if not the best heavy fighter that we have in the game currently. Although I'm sure that there is a bunch of people who disagree with me, I think it's fantastic for both PvE and PvP. Well, apparently, CRG have always had the intention of making a version of the Antares that has a quantum dampener and an EMP. And that's exactly what they've done with the Antares. So what they've done is completely remove the turret, and now the co-pilot has 2 jobs: activating the EMP and turning on the quantum dampener. On first glance, you might think that this is a bit powerful, as you're taking some abilities that a thing like the Cutlass Blue has and that the Mantis has, putting it on a heavy fighter and adding even more firepower to it. However, in practice, this might not be the case. Before we get into where the ship's role might actually be situated, the first thing is it is incredibly buggy, which is to be expected. It has now only been in PTU for a day, and it looks like it's going to be going to live pretty soon. We have bugs like the dampener and the EMP not working at the same time, a visual bug where the EMP stays on and also prevents you from relaunching the EMP. The dampener currently doesn't actually have any range, so is only locking down the Scorpius itself. As well as something that's not technically a bug, but is really annoying, is that there is no actual visual indication to the co-pilot about the weapons, about the EMP and the dampener. You kind of have to guess where it's working based on the energy level of the weapon. So putting all of those aside, because it's not really worth considering when you're talking about balance and ship roll, the question becomes, is the Antares actually worth it? So firstly, I think it's a very unique ship, and that's really important to have these kinds of unique ships. One thing that I've always really wanted in this game is multiple electronic warfare type ships that can do things like both quantum dampening and EMPing, maybe even some form of hacking as well. And I think we will eventually see more of those kinds of ships actually come into play. But the Antares itself suffers from a couple of problems. Firstly, let's talk about it right now in 3.18. If you take the Antares right now in 3.18, ignoring what might come soon, there's not really a reason to use the ship other than you enjoy it. Which, for reference, is a perfectly good reason to buy a ship. However, it's really hard to justify wanting to use a Scorpius over using a Mantis and another fighter. The extra maneuverability you get from those ships, as well as the extra customization you get from those ships, is really important. Especially because the quantum dampener that's supposed to be on the Antares, when it works, seems like it's only supposed to be about 2 kilometers long, instead of the 20 kilometers that you get from the Mantis. So not only does it feel like it would be more efficient to use other ships right now, there's also the issue of the co-pilot is going to be really, really bored. Their entire job is hitting the EMP and turning on the QD. Now, that would be fine if these items didn't have aggressively long cooldowns, meaning that they don't really have to do much of anything for most of the encounter. And from what I can tell with a lot of other creators that have had a chance to check this ship out, as well as people in my Twitch chat who watched me use it last night, this is the main gripe. Because when it comes down to it, no matter what you do to a ship, you still want each roll to be interesting. It is worth noting that a lot of the ships that have come out recently have been for future features. And there's a couple of major features that are coming out that I could see the ship having been designed for, namely the master mode changes, as well as possibly engineering gameplay. This is why, even though I think the ship is kind of bad right now, unlike a lot of other people, I'm not really fussed about that. Because all the ships are bad right now. I think it's really important anytime you're having a discussion about balance, especially in Star Citizen, which still ends up happening all the time, is that there are future mechanics that are going to change all of this. And they are heavily invested in a couple of future mechanics right now. And they've been actively making vehicles with those future mechanics in mind. Now, you can complain about that 100% that they are doing that. But it is a thing worth noting. So if you start complaining, oh, it's not balanced or whatever, well, they've got balance changes coming. That also doesn't necessarily mean the balance changes will fix it, but you don't have the full picture. Although in Star Citizen, when do we ever have the full picture? So that's a bunch of things to keep in mind. I will say how they put the EMP on and how they made the QD sort of spline down the back of the Antares does make it look really cool. As well as just, yeah, having the concept of being able to both dampen someone and EMPing them, basically becoming like a mobile prison, is, while not something I necessarily want to do, it's a mechanic that I'm really excited exists. The moral of the whole story is, if you don't like this ship, don't buy it. It's not a ship that's going to ruin the meta of the game, and it's a ship that a lot of people actually aren't going to use at all. But I think it impacts the game a lot more than some other ship variants that they've made within the last 2 years. So yeah, that's the Antares. Tell me what you think. If you've seen some other people, you know, play around with the Antares, what do you think of it so far? How would you improve it right now in 3.18? And how would you like to balance it in the future with other patches? Let me know in the comments below. Yeah, this is a bit more of a casual format type video. I'm going to try to make a couple more of these every week or so when we have new news come up to talk about. But yeah, that's all that I really wanted to talk about today. So, 07 guys, have a good one.